Incredible Apache woman trapped for 48 hours in rocks. What the cowboy discovered will shock you. Naomi's presence was felt across the Arizona desert, her spirit as entrenched in the rugged land as the ancient saguaro cacti. At 70, she had become a well of wisdom, an elder respected by her people. However, her greatest strength was slowly becoming her greatest curse. As the sun beat down upon her weathered skin, she carefully searched through thick brush for aromatic herbs. Each plant she plucked was a testament to her heritage, a small but significant way to preserve the link to her ancestors. Yet that day, an unforeseen event stripped her of that pursuit and left her writhing beneath boulders, gasping for air as life slipped into a suffocating silence. Max wandered aimlessly through the canyon trails, consumed by his own failures. Dreams of being more than just a struggling cowboy felt distant, like stars shrouded by smoke. He was a ranch hand living paycheck to paycheck, shackled by the silent screams of a past he couldn't escape, the weight of his father's crushing defeat and his mother's unwavering belief that things would change. But as he wound around the sun-baked rocks, his mind was a storm of despair, when suddenly a feeble cry echoed through the persistent wilderness. There it was again. A call for help flitted through the arid air, igniting a spark of something deep within him, a faint memory of needing a hero. He edged closer, hesitant at first, torn between his overwhelming self-doubt and a stirring sense of duty. He could not ignore the voice of authority that had guided him throughout his life. A familiar pang gripped his chest as it dawned on him. Naomi, the venerable elder, lay trapped in suffering. How could he, a man barely keeping his own life together, assist a beloved fixture of the community? He stood frozen, turmoil roiling within him, a harsh internal dialogue clashing with the need for action. What if he failed her? What if he couldn't dig her out in time? No matter how heartbreakingly frozen he felt, this was about more than just a woman under rocks. It was a question of purpose, a struggle against his self-imposed limitations that gripped at his soul. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Driven by an unseen force, Max began to claw at the debris, sweat trickling down his brow. Each rock he unearthed breathed life into memories of his own childhood, the family bonds born from struggle. As he frantically worked, Naomi's voice broke through his thoughts, speaking of resilience, tenacity, and the intricate dance of survival. Each whispered story reminded him of the sacrifices his parents made, lessons he had buried beneath layers of regret. Pain mingled with purpose as the memories fueled him, illuminating the dark corners of his mind with a burning urge to save her. But the longer it took, the stronger the weight of his fears pressed against him. He questioned his very worthiness to be the one to dig her free. Would this act of bravery redeem the years spent shackled by disappointment? Would he ever be more than the boy who watched his family crumble under the weight of expectations? As despair threatened to choke him, dawn's light began to break on the horizon. Was salvation merely about pulling Naomi from the rubble, or could it be something far deeper, an awakening he desperately needed? Clutching the last stubborn boulder, he paused, breath ragged in his chest, as the weight of his choices loomed large. A single whisper, a truth buried long ago, filled the lingering silence of the desert, holding the fragile balance of hope and despair, waiting to be uncovered. Max took a deep breath, feeling the grit of the canyon soil beneath his hands. The sun hung low, casting elongated shadows that danced ominously with the movements of the rocks he struggled against. Each heave sent shockwaves through his body, rattling memories he had tried to silence. When he finally shucked the last boulder aside, a shallow breath danced in the air. Naomi's eyes, usually vibrant and full of fire, flickered with an intensity that belied her physical condition. She was alive, but battered. For a moment, their gazes locked, and something shifted in Max. The urgency he'd felt until now began to morph into clarity. This wasn't just an act of rescue. It was a sentence, a promise to himself that he could become more than his fears. "Help me up," Naomi rasped, her voice hoarse and etched with determination. Her strength, the strength he had often doubted in himself, now demanded that he act. Lifting her was a lesson in vulnerability. Expecting the hardened woman he admired, he had to recalibrate for the frail figure she had become. Instinct kicked in as he wrapped an arm around her shoulders and pulled, 1 part grit, 2 parts respect. Naomi's weight amplified his self-doubt, but just as quickly, it dissolved under the warmth of something new, purpose. When he finally managed to pull her from the last remnants of her entrapment, a wave of elation swept through him. She slumped against the rock, breathing heavily, yet resilience radiated from her weary visage. "Thank you, Max," she whispered, her gratitude solidifying like the very earth they stood on. That fleeting moment held within it the power of redemption. But as relief washed over him, it was soon swallowed by a whirlwind of uncertainty and guilt. Was this just a momentary triumph? What would it mean for his future? Reality twisted as Naomi struggled to rise. He quickly noted that every effort she made was like a silent reminder of the battle he'd been fighting within his own heart. "Don't just stand there, cowboy," she said, her voice regaining strength, each word a push against the depths of his shame. "You need to discover who you are while you're still here." Her words echoed as he instinctively helped her to a nearby rock, his hands shaking, unsure of where the tension in his chest originated. Wasn't it enough to have saved her? One person in a world outside so demanding? But perhaps that was the sin of it all. To believe that helping just one was an end rather than a beginning? Hadn't he shied away from the responsibility of greater acts before? Naomi's pain-stricken face fractured his thoughts, reality crashing in with the starkness of desert light. "It's not just that I needed saving." Her gaze pierced through him, a challenge disguised as wisdom. "You also needed it. So what now?" She made it clear, this was his defining moment, a nexus where failure could birth new life, the chance to reclaim the boy he thought failure had swallowed whole, to step into the legacy of resilience she represented. Her words ignited something deep within him, pushing the uncertainty aside as he realized he was standing on the precipice of transformation. "I don't know what to do," he finally admitted, his voice heavy with the honesty he had buried for too long. "Then let's find out together," she replied, an echo of a promise. With the weight of the experience settling sharply on his shoulders, the desert surrounding them hummed with possibility. The task that lay ahead felt daunting, yet there was a flicker of hope igniting a journey within him that had long been dormant. But as they steadied themselves and prepared to move forward, another sound broke the serene backdrop, a distant rumble, the foreboding growl of an approaching storm. Beneath the threat of nature's fury, Max knew the path to rediscovering himself had only just begun. What lay ahead? Would the tempest usher in a new beginning, or simply drown out the wavering thread of hope? With Naomi's brief reprieve from pain, Max felt the world around him expand, inviting him to step into a role he hadn't considered possible before. Adrenaline coursed through his veins, and the storm that lurked on the horizon felt like a promise, a call to action rather than a signal of despair. As thunder rumbled ominously, a resolve took root within him, challenging his long-held beliefs about deficiency and adequacy. "Let's get you moving," he said, his own voice sounding uncertain but more assertive. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within him. Uncertainty brewed as he helped Naomi find her feet. The cracked earth below them, steady yet shifting, felt like his own foundation, unstable yet rich with potential. "Before we go any further, we need to address your condition," he murmured, guiding her gently away from the jagged rocks. Despite his determination, self-doubt crept in. What could he, with his lethargic spirit, offer this woman who had endured so much? Each step away from the ravine was a step toward an unfamiliar path, one filled with questions he was terrified to confront. "Max, we've got to outrun that storm," Naomi urged. Her voice snapped him back to their precarious reality. Each passing minute heralded the impending tempest, bringing him face to face with urgency. Moving without a plan felt reckless, yet he recognized fear's counterintuitive nature, the way it pushed him toward inertia and paralyzed him in proximity to growth. "You helped me out of that pit, now let's escape this." Together, they sought refuge among the gnarled trees scattered along the canyon's edge, their twisted roots digging deep into the resilient earth. Every heavily sowed root struck him with an understanding. This tenacity mirrored what he sought to plant within himself. Naomi began to lean on a tree, panting heavily. The shadows started to stretch across the ground, and he knew they couldn't linger. "Describe your pain," Max prompted, emitting a wave of determination that replaced his uncertainty. "Where is it the worst?" "Everywhere," she grimaced, yet there was no surrender in her eyes. "But if I stop, I lose everything." It was a stark realization that hit him deep. Pain could paralyze, but it could also propel. As they navigated the treacherous terrain, he focused on her breathing, slow, steady, a metronome to match. Each inhale combined with the pounding thunder overhead, racing toward an unknown climax. Max's thoughts spiraled. Was he fragile too? What if he faltered, letting her down at the crucial moment? Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the barren landscape, and Max halted. "What if we don't make it? What if I slip up?" Naomi turned, wild determination eclipsing the shadows of fear that clouded her face. "And what if you fly? What if this is what you are meant for?" Her challenge sparked something within him, an ember igniting his consciousness, fanning into a flame of questions he hadn't dared voice. Storm clouds loomed, but so did clarity, piercing through apprehension like the sun breaking over the horizon. Max understood now. The journey ahead was not just a physical escape. It was the embrace of self-discovery, a chance to step into the man he had always wanted to be. With newfound resolve, he took her arm gently into his. "Let's find the fastest route out," he said, less as a leader, and more as a partner in this uncertain journey. The swell of wind whipped around them, a crescendo of nature's wrath threatening to swallow their tentative companionship. Just as they began to move forward, another sharp crack of thunder echoed, and this time it was accompanied by a gust that sent a surge of fear down Max's spine. Would the world around them remain intact long enough for both to find their rightful path? With a decision to pursue that unknown place of courage, he pressed ahead. One thing was certain, the storm was not just out there. It was building within him too, and the final test of self would soon arrive. Would the next steps be a leap into transformation or a plunge into chaos? Max's heart raced as he urged Naomi onward, the oppressive weight of the storm mirroring the turmoil brewing in his chest. The jagged rocks and gnarled trees faded with each step. Their erratic forms transformed into blurred reminders of the obstacles he'd always allowed to dictate his choices. The urgency of their predicament flowed into him like the winds that battered against their frames. "Keep your steps light," he advised, slipping into a rhythm that allowed him to maintain focus. She nodded between labored breaths, unwilling to answer with words that would betray how deeply she felt the injury. The air was electric with tension, and the clouds overhead promised to unleash their fury any moment. As they traversed the uneven terrain, Max grappled with his own uncertainties and fears. The primal instinct to survive clashed violently with echoes of victimhood that had haunted him far too long. The memories of stagnation in his life surged forward, like tides crashing against a vulnerable shore. He remembered the moments spent in quiet desperation, the jobs he took just to pay the bills, the nights filled with what-ifs. But Naomi was here, and her resolve shattered the wall he had built around his insecurities. "What if I can't keep up?" she gasped, breaking the silence that had settled heavily between them. He paused, searching her face for something. Hope, defiance, a shared acknowledgement of their struggle. "You can. Every step is one step closer," he encouraged, pushing away momentary doubt. The words ignited something within him. Perhaps this was the moment he'd been waiting for, the chance to accept discomfort as part of the journey rather than a reason to pull back. A sudden flash of lightning lit the sky, illuminating the path ahead for a heartbeat. It was as if the universe offered a peek into the possibility of what lay ahead if he stepped boldly into the chaos, rather than retreating into shadows of cowardice. He felt buoyed by the surge of optimism that accompanied his newfound determination. "Do you think we could outrun it?" Like a rhythmic heartbeat, they pressed on, linking every step to the earnest need to escape their fates. "Outrun it? Maybe. Confront it? Definitely," he replied, a thrill of courage threading through his tone. Naomi met his gaze, and her eyes glinted with resolve. "Good, because outrunning it implies we're scared. I'm done with running." Her words sparked an awakening inside him. This wasn't just a fight against nature. It was about confronting every storm that had held him back. The fear of inadequacy no longer had power. Each stride forward was less about fleeing the storm, and more about claiming the elements that had once forced him into a passive role. Max found their escape route, a narrow trail that weaved through the trees, but the embrace of twisted roots entangled his fears, reinscribing his identity along the way. They pressed ahead, adrenaline fueling their progress, but as the winds howled dangerously in the distance, an undeniable truth washed over him. He could embrace this chaos, redefine it with every move they made. What lay beyond these trees was uncertain, but with every step toward the cascading echoes of thunder, he saw glimpses of a future wrought with possibility. He was no longer just Naomi's guide. He was becoming a partner in resilience. The approaching storm rumbled with ominous promise. It awaited them as both a threat and a catalyst. "Max," Naomi's voice broke through his reverie, "we can't just keep moving forward mindlessly. We need to take control of what happens next." Her words struck him as hard as the gusts of wind slamming against them. "You're right," he said, stopping to reassess the chaotic reality they were in. "I think we need a plan," she suggested. "A plan." The very thought sparked a flicker of creativity illuminating his mind as if igniting a fuse. As they stood at a critical junction in their path, the wind howling with fervent intensity, Max contemplated both survival, and they must establish borders not only against nature, but against their internal storms as well. Would they craft a strategy that could usher them to safety, or risk everything in a reckless charge toward an uncertain fate? Pressure built around Max's chest as he contemplated the gravity of their situation. They stood at a crossroads, a literal and metaphorical moment demanding clarity and resolve. An impending storm loomed above, but it was the tempest within him that he needed to tackle first. "What about the trees? They can shield us some," Naomi suggested, her breath steadier now as she pointed to a dense cluster nearby. He felt a flicker of respect for her intuition. They needed to break from the open path, draw from the power of nature rather than fight it. But what if hiding beneath the monstrous boughs merely postponed the inevitable confrontation? That doubt hung heavy. "Okay, let's see if we can find some cover," he replied finally, steering her toward the grove. As they moved, Max's mind raced. Planning wasn't just a tactical move. It was vital for personal growth. Here he was, caught in a tempest he had previously evaded, unaddressed fear, and unacknowledged potential mingling in his thoughts. What would it take for him to truly embrace his newfound determination? They wove through the thicket, and Max took stock of everything around him, knotted roots, twisted branches, and vines clinging obstinately to life. Each element of nature bore a parallel to his state of mind, tenacious yet tangled. "Give me a hand with this branch," Naomi called out, pulling him out of his reverie. He rushed to her aid, positioning himself beside her. As he helped lift a fallen branch, he felt flashes of strength surge within him. In that moment, physicality and mental clarity merged effortlessly, teaching him the symbiosis of strength and vulnerability. He was no longer just navigating his own journey. He was a critical player in theirs. "I can't believe we might actually get out of this," she said, eyes shining with gratitude. "Believe it," he encouraged, allowing confidence to bloom within their shared space. She mirrored his energy, the conviction in her stance motivating him further. Each challenge they tackled might serve as a testament not only to their survival, but to the growth he could achieve beyond this moment. As the storm grew closer, an inexplicable urge welled up in him to confront their fears directly. "Listen up," he said, grounding himself in his authority. "Staying here will only make us anxious. We need to scout. Let's identify if there's higher ground or something that offers a route away from here, even if it means facing the storm head-on." Naomi nodded, but her expression tightened. "I trust you, but we can't act recklessly. If the wind picks up, we might get caught." He weighed her words. There it was, a chance to embrace this collective journey over isolating fear. "Agreed. We need to balance caution with action. We'll move quickly but thoughtfully." The urgency of their situation settled in once more as they ventured into the cobweb of trees. Max felt his pulse synchronize with the rhythm of nature. Branches swayed above them, leading him deeper into this parallel universe of danger and discovery. Each stride became a manifestation of his commitment to confront his worst fears. Beneath the chaos, flickers of his potential began to shine. These roots were now sources of strength, not hindrances. With every deliberate move, he was reclaiming what life had tried to take from him. Something caught his eye, a steep incline leading away from the thunderclaps and flashes nearby. The pulse of possibility ignited. "Look!" he called, pointing to the root that climbed higher, away from the storm's grasp. Naomi squinted toward his discovery, excitement igniting her features. "Then let's get moving." Surging with conviction, they started up the slope. As they navigated the rocky terrain, Max felt change reverberate through him. He was reshaping his narrative with each step. The storm no longer felt like a threat, but a necessary passage into growth. The power within him awakened, not just the instinct to survive, but to thrive amidst chaos. Yet as they ascended into the precipice of the storm, doubt whispered in his ear, threatening to pull him back into indecision. But the path had opened, and he could feel the storm yield to his progress. "Max, wait," Naomi said as she stumbled. He turned, his heart momentarily slamming against his ribcage with concern. He was no longer just her partner in this journey, but an anchor in the tumult. In that instant, clarity surged through him. Would he allow that doubt to sidetrack their progress? Or would he push forward, solidify his will for both their futures? The impending storm rumbled above, coaxing forth a confrontation with his past vulnerabilities. He felt the surge, an internal reckoning pulled taut. What awaited them above the tree line, or how much more would he uncover about himself in those next moments? As thunder rolled ominously, he took a step closer to answers, ready to face whatever awaited them. Max's heart raced as he turned to Naomi, anxiety crackling like the charged air around them. She had stumbled, and in that moment, the fear of falling, both literally and figuratively, threatened to ensnare him. Her vulnerability ignited a protective instinct within him, but it also forced him to grapple with his own insecurities. What if he failed her? What if he faltered? "Are you all right?" he asked, striding over and offering his hand to help her up. Her eyes met his, and he saw a blend of determination and doubt reflected back at him. "I'm fine, just lost my footing," she replied, brushing off the dirt as she stood. "Let's keep moving." As they resumed their ascent, the reality of their situation settled deeper into Max's psyche. Each step they took was not just a physical relocation, but a rejection of the emotional paralysis he had battled for so long. Here he was, thrust into a fight against external forces while simultaneously facing the tempest of his internal struggles. If he could rally against the storm, couldn't he also rally against the uncertainties that plagued him? The incline grew steeper, and with every panting breath, Max could feel the weight of his thoughts becoming a little lighter. He was carving a new path, through the wilderness, yes, but more importantly, through his own doubts. With Naomi beside him, he had a renewed strength, a flicker of purpose that invigorated his resolve. "Max, I think there's a clearing just ahead," she pointing toward the break in the trees, but her voice wavered slightly as if she were unsure of her perception. He recognized that familiar flicker of fear in her tone. "Let's check it out," he said, thrusting aside his insecurities in favor of action. Each time he made a decision, no matter how small, he felt a growing empowerment. It wasn't merely about finding shelter, it was also about taking ownership of his journey. They approached the clearing, the trees opening up to reveal a breathtaking view of the rugged horizon. The storm still loomed in the distance, its ominous clouds swirling, but in that moment, Max felt a sense of calm. Nature, with its raw beauty and chaos, mirrored his own tumultuous path, but also hinted at the possibility of growth. "Wow," Naomi breathed, her eyes wide as she absorbed the scene. "This is incredible." Max took a deep breath, and a newfound idea began to take root. "If we climb that outcrop," he pointed to a rocky ledge jutting out above them, "we'll be able to see where the storm is headed. Knowledge is our ally." "I don't know, it looks risky," she replied, taking a step back. "Staying here doesn't feel right either. If we hope to survive, we need to make bold choices." His voice was steadier than he felt. It echoed his desire to align thought with action, to confront the discomfort of uncertainty. Naomi looked at him, searching his face for reassurance. "So you really think we can figure this out?" "Absolutely," he said, the conviction surging again. "We've gotten through the worst of it together. This is just another step." After a moment, her features softened and she nodded. "Okay, let's do it." They clambered up the rocky outcrop, their movements marked by a collaborative rhythm. Each step further solidified the bond they were forging amidst the chaos. As they reached the ledge, a powerful gust rushed past them, almost thrilling in its intensity. Max's heart raced, not just with adrenaline, but with a burgeoning sense of possibility. "See that?" He pointed toward the horizon where the storm was beginning to shift directions. "If we know where it's moving, we can plan our next steps." "Wow, Max, you're really good at this." Naomi grinned, genuine admiration coloring her voice. Her words stung, a bittersweet reminder of his previous avoidance of leadership roles. He had never considered himself capable of making decisions under pressure, yet here he was, thriving in uncertainty. This realization fueled him further. "It's just about trusting ourselves," he replied, his voice steady as he looked out over the landscape. "We've both got what it takes." Yet, as they soaked in the view, the clouds began to swirl ominously closer, almost as if they had sensed Max's newfound confidence and sought to challenge it. "Max," Naomi said, her face paling, "I think we need to get off this ledge. The wind is picking up." Her concern pierced through the thin veneer of bravery he wore like armor. Did he truly want to confront the storm brewing not only above but within him? Or would he retreat to the safety of indecision when it mattered most? "Let's go," he commanded, feeling the edge of resolve sharpen. It was now or never. At that moment, he made a choice, to race toward the tempest and face the uncertainties head-on, both in nature and within himself. He took a step down, but a sudden rumble from the sky made him hesitate. What awaited them when they returned to the ground? Would they conquer the storm, or would it consume them both? As the winds began to wail, Max took a breath, ready to dive deeper into both the physical and emotional storm that lay ahead. The air was thick with urgency as Max and Naomi descended from the ledge. The winds whipped around them, a relentless reminder of nature's power, mirroring the internal storm brewing in Max's mind. Each step felt heavy as his insecurities clawed at him. Had he truly taken ownership of his journey, or was he simply one decision away from unraveling? "Stick close," he shouted over the howl of the wind, forcing his feet to cooperate despite the unease churning inside. The treacherous terrain required focus, yet his thoughts flitted to the doubts he had buried. Was he really capable of leading them through this? Naomi's presence bolstered his intention. She followed closely, and he could feel her reliance on him, which ignited a fire in his gut. For once, he wanted to be the pillar she needed. "We'll head toward that grove of trees," he pointed. "It should offer some cover." As they moved, the world around them felt as chaotic as his thoughts. Branches cracked underfoot, and the skies roared, angered by their resolve. His heart thudded, an echo of the pressure he felt to rise to the occasion. What if this was just bravado? What if he let her down? "Max, we need to hurry," Naomi urged, her voice strained. The sincerity in her tone stripped away any facade he might have upheld. They had no time for doubt. "Right, just a little further," he said, pushing himself forward. Each stride was a battle against retreating into self-doubt, a refusal to cower when clarity was demanded. They stumbled into the grove just as the storm intensified, and large droplets began to fall. Under the boughs of the trees, Max took a breath, pressing his back against the rough bark. He felt both a sense of accomplishment and a creeping awareness that the hard part was far from over. They were safe, but internally he grappled with a cascading wave of self-questioning. Had he simply escaped one battlefield only to face a more daunting one within? "Max," Naomi's voice broke through, "we need to talk about what's next. What's our move?" The weight of responsibility fell squarely on his shoulders. The earlier bravado began to falter as images of failure played in his mind. Instead of crumbling, he rooted himself in the moment. "Let's assess our options," he replied, allowing a focus that had previously eluded him to emerge. "We can wait this out, or we can look for a safer passage down the mountain when it calms. What if we get lost?" Her eyes reflected the storm both outside and within herself. "Then we adapt," he answered, surprising even himself with the firmness of his voice. "We can't predict every outcome, but we can control how we respond to them." Something shifted in his gut at that statement, an understanding that overcoming the storm outside was inseparable from conquering the tempest within. In sharing uncertainty with Naomi, he saw his own vulnerability mirrored back, and the acknowledgement didn't weaken him. It contributed to his strength. As the rain began to fall in earnest, a realization struck him like an electric jolt. Leadership wasn't about having all the answers. It was about fostering an environment where both he and Naomi could explore options together, where fear could be faced head-on. "I've been hesitant to lead because I feared failure," he confessed, revealing a layer of himself that had remained tucked away. "But maybe we need to fail sometimes to find our way?" Naomi's expression softened, her understanding palpable. "That's part of it, isn't it? We just have to keep moving, 1 inch at a time." Feeling galvanized by their exchange, Max pivoted the focal point away from just survival toward shared victories. "We'll make it through this. We just have to trust our instincts." Suddenly, a bolt of lightning lit up the sky, illuminating their surroundings for a split second, a striking reminder of their vulnerability. The rumble of thunder followed, loud and powerful, eerily resonating with the tumult in Max's heart. "Let's go. Back on the path," he urged. As they slipped out from the protection of the trees, Max's resolve solidified. The landscape ahead remained uncertain, yet he felt a flicker of confidence taking root. Perhaps in embracing the storms, both external and internal, he could not only navigate this wilderness with Naomi, but also discover a new part of himself forged in resilience. But as they pressed deeper into the storm, shadows flickered around them, and unease clawed back at him, reminding him that uncertainty often held more than just challenges. It held secrets. What would they uncover as they ventured onward? Would it test their burgeoning partnership, or would it unveil an unexpected truth that could alter their course forever? Each step Max took felt more determined than the last. The rain pelted down, each drop an urgent reminder that nature's fury mirrored his internal battlefield. As he forged onward with Naomi at his side, the cacophony of the storm began to blend with the rush of adrenaline coursing through him. But lingering doubt remained, gnawing at his core. Was he truly capable of leading? Or was this just a facade, a desperate attempt to rise above his own insecurities? "Keep your eyes peeled for landmarks," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. The path was slippery, rocks jutting out like fractious thoughts he couldn't disperse. It required all his focus to navigate, yet the weight of their situation permeated every decision he made. The stakes were grimly tangible. Each wrong turn could lead not just to physical peril, but to an unraveling of everything he was striving to be. Naomi moved with a sense of cautious determination, her resolve apparent even as uncertainty flickered behind her steadfast eyes. "What if we find ourselves on the wrong path?" she questioned again, the fear evident in her tone contrasting sharply against their pressed urgency. "Then we adjust," Max replied, shaking off the visceral discomfort at the back of his mind. The very thought of being lost, both literally and metaphorically, sent shivers through him. He needed to embody the leadership he was learning, not just for them, but to prove to himself that he could confront fear, even when it raged violently within. Pushing through the thickening storm, Max sought clarity. "Let's look for higher ground. From there, we can spot our surroundings and reclaim some perspective." The phrase tasted bittersweet on his tongue. He was voicing a strategic decision while grappling internally with the imminent threat of failure that had shadowed his every move. As they climbed, he felt Naomi's tension beside him, her every footfall a reminder of the burden of their shared journey. Would the trust she'd placed in him navigate them through this darkness, or would it crumble beneath the weight of unfulfilled expectations? "Max," she called out, pausing to steady herself on a slick stone. "If we reach the top and we're still lost, what do we do then? Just try to retrace our steps?" The question pierced through his armor of brave intentions, forcing him to confront the tightrope between ambition and fear. Finding the path isn't just about where we are. It's about what we're willing to endure to move forward. Her eyes searched his, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Max felt the foundations of their partnership solidifying, a pact forged in the face of uncertainty. They would face impending danger together, even if individually they were unsure of their footing. Finally, cresting a rise, they emerged into a clearing. The storm had dulled, but that clarity brought no easing of tension, only heightened awareness. Surrounding them lay fragmented traces of their earlier journey, paths that twisted and turned deceitfully into the deep mist. Here, in this disoriented expanse, Max's previous confidence teetered precariously. Just ahead, a stone formation loomed, oddly inviting and yet foreboding. He approached, urgency beckoning him nearer, yet caution advising restraint. Something felt amiss, as if this was the eye of a storm rather than a place of respite. He hesitated, capturing both Naomi's cautious evaluation and the depth of his own instinctive dread. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, her brows knitting tightly as she leaned closer, straining her ears against the fading patter of rain. A faint, eerie echo rippled through the valley, soft cries almost indistinguishable from the wind's moan. An unfamiliar chill danced down Max's spine, stirring both dread and curiosity. There was something waiting within those stones, something that could undo the fragile trust he had begun to build. As they leant close and the sounds grew clearer, got impatient with their own trepidation, Max felt the pertinence of their situation sharpen. The truth was lurking just beneath the surface. What could they stumble upon that might test their alliance? What hidden revelations did the rocks bear? He squared his shoulders, signaling a shift back to collaborative decisiveness. "Let's investigate. It's our only way forward." With uncertainty sparking fear and adrenaline, they advanced together toward the stone formation. The revelation that awaited would challenge everything they knew about survival, partnership, and themselves. As Max and Naomi approached the stone formation, a palpable tension hung in the air, thickening the mist that swirled around them. Each footstep felt heavy with the weight of uncertainty, breaths intermingled with a mix of trepidation and determination. Max's mind raced through possibilities. What hidden dangers lay ahead, and how would they confront them together? Was he equipped to handle whatever reality awaited them in these stones? The soft cries intensified, echoing off the jagged surfaces. For a heartbeat, Max allowed doubt to take root, whispering insidiously that perhaps he had led them into an unknown peril, one that would reveal his inadequacies as a leader. But as he glanced at Naomi, her expression resolute yet anxious, something sparked within him. This was not just about survival. It was about growth. "Stay close," he murmured, shifting into a protective stance. He began to navigate the formation's entrance, the rough edges of the stones scraping against his palm like reminders of the grit he needed to summon. Every instinct urged him to retreat back to safety, but the unyielding cries compelled him onward. They resonated with a haunting familiarity, echoing the struggles he had faced, inner conflicts, doubts, and his yearning to prove himself. Each step deeper into the structure felt like a test of his character. The dark crevices swallowed light, amplifying his deeper dread. But simultaneously, this darkness also held potential. What had he not yet recognized about himself? What reservoirs of strength were waiting to be unearthed? "Max!" Naomi's voice cut through his racing thoughts. She motioned him closer, an urgency brightening her tone. "Look!" In the dim light filtering through cracks in the stone, an engraven symbol caught his eye. It was unfamiliar, yet compelling, a striking mark that hinted at untold stories embedded within the very fabric of their surroundings. As they drew near, Max could feel the energy of the place shift, as if the stones were alive with history. "Do you think it could have been a message?" Naomi asked, her fingers brushing the stone as if seeking answers. "It feels like a warning," Max replied, his mind racing with implications. He thought about their journey, always moving forward but often unsure. What if this symbol represented more than ancient storytelling? What if it was a reflection of their current plight, mirroring their own struggles? His thoughts drifted back to their partnership. Was he truly in the position to guide? Or was he just floundering, unsure of what to say or do next? The stakes had grown higher. They weren't just trying to navigate inhospitable terrain, but also the precarious balance of their trust in each other. "Max!" Naomi's voice broke through again, injecting urgency into the air. "The cries, they've shifted. They sound different now." He nodded, momentarily losing himself in the cadence of her tone, realizing the transformation of uncertainty into a mission. Instead of retreating into fear, they could transform this experience into a crucible for growth, a chance to redefine what leadership meant to him. Together, he affirmed softly, feeling the clarity of purpose grow stronger. Whatever's in there, we'll face it together. Everything we've faced up until now leads us to this moment. With a final breath, they plunged deeper into the stone formation, driven by a compelling mixture of curiosity and determination. The echo of the cries grew louder, morphing into a symphony of urgency that reverberated within him, an urgent call to uncover not only the secrets of the stones, but also the depths of their metal. As they pressed on, navigating through narrow passages that constricted their path, Max felt a surge of confidence mingle with fear. It was the kind of fear that propelled him, not paralyzed him. Everything was about to shift again. They were on the precipice of discovery. All at once, they stumbled into an inner chamber, saturated with an ethereal glow. In that flickering light, they caught sight of a lone figure, a woman, her strength evident even in her stillness, trapped within the embrace of the stone. Max's heart pounded in his chest, the space between them an ocean of possibility. What mysteries lay hidden in her experience, and what challenges would they now face to release her? Facing her penetrating gaze made the world beyond the stones irrelevant. His personal fears faded into the background as a new revelation loomed. They were moving beyond survival and into a test of compassion, leadership, and resilience beyond anything he had ever imagined. What would it cost to free her, and what shadows within himself might he confront in the process? As the moment swelled with possibilities, he realized the depth of their journey was only just beginning. Max and Naomi stood before the figure within the stone chamber, the weight of the moment pressing upon them like the heavy silence in the air. The woman was clearly trapped, her body contorted at odd angles, yet her eyes shone with an intensity that carved fear into the stone walls surrounding them. It was no longer just about surviving the storm outside. It was about confronting the deeper, darker storms within themselves. Who are you?" Max stammered, stepping closer, while Naomi remained rooted in place, absorbing the fraught energy radiating from the entrapped woman. "I am called Lila," the figure gasped, her voice punctuated by emotions laced with both urgency and resignation. "I too lost my path. I now dwell among these stones, waiting for someone to see beyond their fear and reclaim their agency. This chamber holds the whispers of forgotten truths about strength and resilience, but many who have come before you chose retreat over discovery." Max's pulse quickened. It felt as though Lila's words dug deep into the soil of his soul, exposing all the reasons he had shielded himself from the potential of failure. He locked eyes with Naomi, searching for a hint of uncertainty, but her resolve was steadfast, reflecting the very tenacity they had both learned from their harrowing escape. "Lila," he said, finding the courage to speak, "we're here to help you. We came through a storm, and now we want to face whatever challenges lie ahead, but we need to understand what trapped you here." "Then listen closely," Lila said, her voice steadying. "I was once like you, a seeker of my own path, crafting dreams from the muck of doubt. But it was only when my fears manifested into this prison that I realized I had given power to the dark. You must confront what binds you, what weighs on your heart, and show it that you no longer heed its call." As the gravelly words seeped into Max's consciousness, they ignited an inner turbulence he couldn't ignore. He had learned to navigate the world through layers of self-doubt, an unwillingness to confront the real specter of inadequacy that lurked within him. Here stood Lila, a living testament to what happened when fear went unchallenged. "Tell me how," he urged, the urgency of the situation forging clarity through the chaos. "How do we confront these fears?" Lila's gaze pierced through him, as though she could see the depths of his past. "Fear must be faced in earnest. Bind yourself to action, not hesitation. Let the strength of your purpose dance with vulnerability, entwining them. It is in that fusion that true power lies." He felt the weight of her words resonating deep within. They mimicked the revelations he had unearthed throughout their perilous journey. It wasn't only about saving others. It was about stepping into a power he had risked abandoning, a truth he had feared to accept, yet one that fueled him endlessly. "Let's do it," Naomi stepped forward, her heart pounding in sync with Max's as they both accepted the challenge Lila set before them. Let's confront our fears and unleash the potential trapped inside them. They nodded in unity, ready to commit to this task that loomed before them. Max felt a rush of confidence surge through him as they positioned themselves, ready to dislodge the stones holding Lila captive. I will help you, Lila urged, drawing strength from the flickering light around them. Use the lessons learned from each storm you have faced, speak to your fears, acknowledge their existence, and then claim your truth. Max took a deep breath, grounding himself in the immensity of their undertaking. I am more than my failures. I refuse to let the shadow of doubt dictate my worth. His heart raced, words all pouring at once. Naomi clasped his hand, adding her voice, I will no longer let my pain restrict me. I will reclaim my strength. As they echoed their declarations, the stones began to tremble. Lila's figure shimmered with anticipation, while the sounds of the storm outside grew deafening, as if nature itself was responding to their resolve. Together, they wedged their hands against the stones, feeling the pulse of their intention cascade through the solid mass. The earth beneath them responded, shaking with the power of their united voices. Together, we reclaim our truths, Max shouted, the sound pounding against the stone walls. Each word reverberated through the chamber, transforming the air from stagnant fear to rampant possibility. The rocks shifted, dislodging under the force of their convictions. Lila's eyes, once clouded with despair, now filled with light. You hold the key, she intoned softly, her voice echoing as warmly as the newfound clarity that surrounded them. As the final stone fell away, it unleashed a wave of energy that filled the chamber. Lila climbed free, reclaiming her freedom, but the true liberation belonged to Max and Naomi. They had not only freed Lila from her bondage, but themselves from the shadows that had haunted them. Breathless, they stepped back, awash with exhilaration and relief. The storm outside rumbled, but within them a calm settled, emerging with newfound confidence, standing tall like sturdy trees, roots digging deeper into the earth. I am empowered, Max said, feeling the gravity of the moment shift. Not only had he confronted the external storm, but he had learned to embrace the intricacies of his own vulnerabilities. He had transformed from a passive observer to an active participant in his life. Me too, Naomi replied, her demeanor radiant with a glow of serenity. I've shed the fears that have weighed me down. I too choose to embrace the future. As they shared smiles, Lila nodded approvingly, a beacon of strength reinvigorating their journey. Remember this moment, she urged, for what you have achieved together isn't merely a triumph, it signifies the unlocking of your potential. Carry it forward. With everything surrounding them suddenly opened, they emerged from the stone formation, wading back into the world outside. The storm was still present, but instead of fear unsettling them, a wild optimism surged through their veins. They had not just overcome the chaos, they had transcended it, and with each step they took into the light, they felt grounded in their strengths, asserting their identities with unshakable confidence. Max realized then that his journey had only just commenced, a journey fueled by purpose, grounded in resilience, where he would forge a path toward empowerment each step of the way. He didn't merely escape the storm, he had learned to embrace the tempest and all the growth that came with it. And as the distant echoes of thunder faded, he knew their story was just beginning. Now don't let this end here. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to follow these incredible emotional journeys and uncover the transformative tales that await you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find these stories that inspire growth. Comment your thoughts on this breathtaking resolution and share your reactions and theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Every moment counts in the journey of transformation.